kids might be out of class, but the teacher's still in doing the final grade reviews. It's the season grades.
Hello and welcome back to the British Touring Car Podcast. For the third time now, we are trying to record this.
That intro had a lot more gusto and sort of
Yeah,
excitement in it.
It's getting slowly more tired, isn't it?
Yeah. We've tried, as you say, 3 different locations, 3 different ways of doing it. The software that we've used all season to, some would say, success, has decided to completely have a brain fart now, and it's we're trying again. How are you?
Yeah, not too bad.
Good. That's the pleasantries done.
It's been a long while since the season's over, but yeah, we thought we'd bring you the final driver grades for the season and see whether they're going to be back next year, really.
Yeah, although by the time it goes out, it might be the driver grades of 2 years ago. But still, we persevere, and we'll start where it's obvious to start, and it's Ash Sutton, and it's an A-star. If you want our full drive, for our full feelings on his drive this year, go listen to this season review. He's won everything by some margin. He's very good at racing. It's an A-star. Will he be back next year? Yes. Will he be at Napa next year? Yes. Should we move straight on?
Yep, definitely. Straight on to Dan Camish then. Possibly one of the unluckiest men on the grid this year.
You make your own luck.
Yeah, he only gets to see. It's been a turbulent season, shall we say. Had obviously the massive accident at Donington. Had a really good start to the year, taking wins at Donington as well. But yeah, it's just it hasn't come together for him. I think he'll be back next season. I think he'll probably give it another go in the Napa Ford as well, as long as they stay with the Ford. Obviously, there could be many changes. But yeah, I think he'll be back.
Yeah, C's right. He's in my award category for most underwhelming driver of the year. It's not worked for him so far at Napa. You say he's had bad luck, but you make your own luck at Snetterton. He lost it on his own in qualifying when he was going really fast. So yeah, it's difficult to be the team out of Ash Sutton. It's almost Max Verstappen syndrome to a degree, that you've got this all-time great who you're competing against and marking yourself against. But he's got to do better. He was a long way. He wasn't anywhere near the championship battle this season, and he will be back next year. I agree, but he needs to improve and drastically.
Yeah, on to Dan Rowbottom then.
Yeah, it's a C for him. Decent season by Dan. His best in the touring cars by some way. Still involved in a few too many incidents, some of his own making, some where he's caught up in. And he's still got, I think there's a couple of levels for him to go. So it's a C so far. He will be back next year, and unless it's a team that desperately needs sponsorship and can convince him otherwise, he'll be at Napa, Stroke Allegiance, Stroke Alliance, Stroke Blue, Stroke Ford, Stroke Motorbase.
Yeah, the amount of support that he brings. I think we've also mentioned previously that Cataclean could possibly become a main sponsor for that team if Napa are looking to go on to bigger and better things. Yeah, C for him this season. He's been a good team player at times, with some funny and curious interviews after races, but I think there is definitely more to come from him.
This is the noisiest chair in existence.
Sorry, it's had my fat ass on it. Sam Osborne then gets a C. Now he's got to be slightly disappointed missing out on Jack Sears.
And by a
considering
fair way.
Considering the car that he's had this season, he's been beaten by 2 cars that are probably lesser cars on the grid, in the Astra and the Cupra, that's the word. So he had some good performances at times. Obviously took his first podium in this season, which was a highlight of his, and did have some Jack Sears wins along the way, but not enough consistency for me.
I'd agree, but on the flip side, I said about Rowbottom, it's easily his best season in the touring cars to date. He's certainly built on what he's had in the series so far. He will be back next year. Daddy owns the team, and if it's good enough for Lance Stroll, it's going to be good enough for Sam Osborne. So yeah.
Moving on to Ingram then, the closest challenger to Sutton.
It's my go.
Sorry, go on. I was just setting it up for you.
Okay, carry on.
Moving on to Ingram then.
The closest challenger to Sutton throughout the season, yes. Ingram gets an A. Obviously, he can't have an A star because he didn't win the championship, but he would have won the championship in 10 of the last 12 seasons with that point score. Scored more points this year than he did when he won it last year. Was a thorn in Sutton's side the entire year, and did really well mentally not to give up, because he'd have known realistically about 3/4 way through the season, it was done.
Yeah.
Really, he's a realistic guy. He'd have known it was done, but he's still right to the very end. Was still pushing Sutton all the way, and that takes incredible mental resilience as well.
I wonder whether the team were sort of like of that feeling of it's probably done for this season, 75% of the way through, and whether they've already started looking towards next year's car where they can make the improvements.
I got the feeling Tom Chilton taking that approach from the sixth race in, but yeah. So it's an A for Ingram. He will be back next year. I can't see him being anywhere other than Accelerate. If I'm honest with you, he seems ready at home there. There's always a chance that a WSR comes knocking, but I think he'll be at Accelerate next season.
Yeah, I tend to agree with you. Moving on to Chilton then, he gets a C this season. Yes, he's taken a win this year, but that was about it. He's been fairly non-existent for most weekends.
Anonymous.
Yeah.
Which is an improvement on last year, because last year every weekend he was causing an accident somewhere along the line. So,
I suppose.
He's gone from being that to was he here kind of thing. But
been very much in that midfield pack. Nothing really to write home about. Will he be back next season? Yeah, I think so. If he wants to be, he brings so much sponsorship and money with him that a team like Accelerate is probably a good fit for him still. They'll probably go, he's a decent driver to have around.
Yeah, and there's rumours they're going to go to a 6-car team. That might mean they're bringing through some younger talent, Dan Zelos, for example, and there are worse drivers to learn off than Tom Chilton. You know, let's get that right. I think the problem for Accelerate is that we've spoken about how well Camish and Robot have played the team game at times. Ingram's had none of that because they're not close enough. Well, apart from when he stole Pearson's podium at Knock Hill. But other than that, they've not been about to help him. But he will be back next year if he wants to be. And again, he can pretty much choose where he ends up. But why would you leave where he is if he can stay there? So.
Yeah, it hasn't been very often this season that Ingram's teammates have taken points off of Sutton.
No.
So he probably needs that going into next year if Sutton's going to be as good as he has been this year.
Our first rookie of the year then in Ronan Pearson, who actually had a pretty good year. On the whole, a few highs, a few lows. A C overall. Decent showing in the Jack Sears. Would have had a podium had it not been for Tom's nasty side coming out and stealing it in front of his home fans at his home race in front of us in a rain-soaked Knock Hill. But yeah, he's shown pace at times. He's shown his inexperience at times, but that is to be expected. He is in his first season. He's still a very young driver as well. We know he's back next year. He's got an announcement already made, a deal already on the table, so we know he's here. We know he's at Accelerate.
Yeah, I think it's good for him to have that stability going into next season, knowing the team, knowing the car, and trying to make progress basically, and a young up-and-coming driver. On the other end of the spectrum, however,
nice.
is Halstead, who was quite consistently towards the back of the field this season, something that we pretty much expected going into the season, and D didn't disappoint in that respect.
Yeah, I mean, look, everyone who comes to the grid, barring maybe a handful, have to bring their own money, have to bring their own sponsorship, have to buy their drive, as it were. You can't fully see me because of the way the camera's cut. No, wrong way. Buy their drive, as it were. But that's true of most drivers on the grid. So that's a pretty weak argument to give. However, the argument is, if you look at the numbers, as you said, back of the field most weeks, in a gravel trap at some point most weeks, off the pace, off the general ability. This is a really high quality grid in terms of ability and pedigree, and I just don't think Halstead has it at this level, personally.
No, and I don't think he's going to be back next year.
Nor do I.
I think Accelerate, as you've already mentioned, might be looking towards younger drivers and the programme that they have in the lower support series. There are a couple of good drivers in there that they do well to bring through.
Yeah, if you've got Dan Zelos or Lydia Wormsley as two drivers, Will Orton, another one in that lower series, who probably are ready for the step up into touring cars. Why would you waste is too harsh a word, but why would you put Halstead over one of those three?
They've just got to find budgets. That is always the big crux of the issue.
Yeah, but Accelerate, they might not need to find as big a budget if they're going into this expansion style thing, and they have got that link to the lower sport anyway, and people like Zelos, I think, wouldn't necessarily struggle to get some of the budget.
No, especially with the success that he's had.
Exactly.
On to BMW then.
Yeah, Colin first up. The BMW disappointed us this season. We've mentioned that on the season review. I think it was so long ago. I'm sure we did. It's a B for Colin. Look, he still does some things very well. He still scores points. He still takes wins. You know, if it's a touring car season, Colin Turkin is going to take a win at some point.
Yep.
but he was 60 points off his own teammate this year. He was so far off the championship battle, it was incredible. I think that's probably the furthest I can remember him being off for. I can't remember him being that far off.
I think in the last 10 seasons up until this season, he's been in the championship battle, going into the final round at Brands, and this is the first year that he's had that little dip. But I think that is down to the car, and they've been struggling for setup a lot this year.
Partly down to the car, partly down to the fact that it rained on media day, only one driver went out, and it rained most of the year, so that didn't help them. And look, touring car drivers, as do any athletes, have a peak.
Yes.
And I think we've seen Colin's peak. I think it's a mixture of that and his style of safe, consistent driving
isn't enough.
Doesn't work anymore when you've got Ash and Tom in the series, and perhaps Jake as well to a degree, where they can drive fast, they can drive safe, but they can also make risks that work, and they take those risks and it works.
Yeah.
And it works so often that the one or two times it doesn't work isn't enough for you to sit in sixth and take the position, take the points, because Hill had no retirements all year, finished every single race. Yep. I'm fairly sure Ingram didn't have any retirements. When started had retirements because he was being an idiot and put it into a wall just to keep things interesting. But the point being that even with those retirements for Sutton, he still finished over 100 points, if memory serves me right, ahead of Turkey in the championship. Yeah. So that style of driving isn't enough anymore for Colin. I think he's going to struggle a little bit. It is a B for his overall. He's done pretty well, relatively speaking. I don't think he's back next year. I think he's got kids that are now into motorsport. I think he might want to maybe take a sabbatical to spend a year with them. And also, I think at the back of his mind, he will know that him and Tom Chilton rather are the old guard in this sport, and
don't want to go the same way as Plato.
Don't want to go the same as Plato. Plato limped out of the sport really. I wouldn't say embarrassed himself, but he certainly, the Plato he finished with certainly wasn't the Plato. And to actually Neil to a lesser extent, who I think got out probably a season too late, but right, he still took a win, albeit it was taken off of him for punting Josh Cook up the backside. But there's going to come a point where Turkington won't be a front runner, and I think he'll want to get have that end point before it gets to that stage.
I think he's probably got the option for next year, as to whether he wants that drive at WSR.
Oh yeah, he'll always have the option,
and I think he'll probably take one more season at it. If it becomes the case of next season that he doesn't take a win, then I think he'll start to question whether he's still got enough about him to compete. But you do make a good point. The family is always going to take priority. He's very much a family man, and having his kids in the sport, he wants to support them as much as he can. But I think he might give it one more year.
I think a sabbatical. I don't think it's the end of him, but I think he might say sabbatical.
Moving on to Jake Hill, his formidable teammate, shall we say, has had some.
They get on well, don't they?
Has had some up and down performances throughout the year, more highs than lows though, and takes a B overall, though you're not wholly sure, are you?
I think it's hard. I think it's an A personally, because I think if the engine doesn't crap itself at Silverstone, he wins 2 out of 2, and he either goes ahead in the championship or goes to silly points, where it's like 6 points or so behind Sutton in the championship. And that I still think Sutton wins the championship, but that changes everything in terms of the championship fight. And okay, it's motorsport. The engine crapped itself, and it didn't. He fell down the order because of it. But if it wasn't for that one bit of bad luck, it could have been a very different year for Hill. He could have finished second in the championship, realistically speaking.
I think there were other points during the year where he could have made better of situations. And I think that would have helped him along the way. I think he needs to find more consistency. Yes, okay, he scored or finished every race, but he needs to be finishing slightly higher up each time. And
I don't disagree, but don't forget, only a few minutes ago you were saying the BMW struggled for setup, struggled for pace, etc., etc. He's had to drive around what's been, let's get out there, a pretty poor car. He's had to drive around a fairly poor car.
And we've already noted the amount of wet weather that the BMW is always struggling.
And he's excelled in.
He has. It'll be interesting to see whether they change the car next year. I think he'll be back. I think he'll be there. Although whatever Mark Blundell finds for him that seems the best opportunity, he will always try and push him towards.
Absolutely.
But especially if Turkington may well be leaving, he could well be a team leader directly for WSR.
Yeah, I think he'll be back next year for sure. And I think that you've hit the nail on the head. It will likely be WSR. He fits in there, albeit he's not a driver. He's a guest of WSR on the branding. But yeah, unless Blundell can find a better deal for him, which is what his job is to do at the end of the day.
Yep.
Where else can he realistically go?
It's difficult. If you want a top car, look at the teams that you've got from this season. It's Hyundai, BMW, or Ford, and the top seats are all really taken.
Aren't they? Yeah.
So it is probably the best option for him at the moment. On to Jelly then, mate.
Yeah, your favourite driver of all time, Stephen Jelly. It's been a Jelly season. There have been highs, there have been lows, and there's been a lot of Jelly moments in the middle. Whether that's punting off Doble at the final round at Brands Hatch to ruin his Jack Sears hopes, or whether it's fighting for podiums at other rounds. It's been that kind of year for Stephen Jelly. He's a mainstay as well in the Chilton and Turkington camp as well, in terms of the old guard.
The old guard, yeah.
I don't know what else to really say about his season. It's been, if you've seen Stephen Jelly before, you've seen this movie before. It's to see movie back. I think honestly it depends on Turkington. I think if Turkington's back, Jelly's back, because they get on really well and they are good for each other, and they always have been. And Jelly knows where his place is in the team. He's not going to do a Jake Hill and start banging door handles and rubbing to get past. If he's behind Turkington, he'll stay behind Turkington.
Unless it's other people.
And
they need to be out of the way.
But that's his job to a degree.
It is.
As I say, Hill is not happy to hold station. He will fight with Turkington. Jelly won't. If Turkington's not back, I don't think Jelly is. And if he is back, it's at WSR.
Well, we already know from the final interviews at Brands this season that he has the option there if he wants to take it. I don't think he will. I think he might move on to either other racing or like historics or something like that.
Porsches, I can see him doing.
I think his time might have come, and I think WSR would be good to look for younger drivers to bring in as well, because
I don't disagree, but they just generally don't do that.
No,
that's just generally not their model, is it? Apart from arguably when they took Turkington on back in 1964, it's not really been their model, has it?
No. But one driver they have done that with is Morgan. They've brought him on this year, and it's been mixed, to say the least. I think he takes a C this season. He's had some decent performances, not thrilling ones, but if you asked me at the start of the season where I thought he'd finished in the championship, he's finished exactly where I thought he'd finish.
Yeah, look, I've always, the last couple of seasons I've started to feel a bit underwhelmed and potentially even a bit shortchanged by Adam Morgan.
Is he your Moffat?
No, because I don't have it. He doesn't keep me awake at night with hate like Moffat does with you.
He doesn't keep me awake.
Moffat came into the sport about the same time as Ingram.
Yeah.
And when they both came in, I thought they were both going to get to sort of the heights that Ingram has reached now. Morgan looked really good at the Mercedes, got results out of that car that shouldn't have been possible. No. And he looked really good. At Car Gods last year, with the same car he's driving this year, looked okay. Getting a few more taps and again a few more aggression and a few incidents along the way. Perhaps noticed a bit more because he was in a BMW and therefore and in a team and the spotlight's a bit more on him. He's no longer the underdog. He's in this funded team and you know, a customer of BMW and that. Has he reached the heights I thought he was going to? No. I thought he'd have been in the battle at least for a championship by now, and he hasn't been.
No.
Have we already seen the best of Adam Morgan? I don't know. Can he go? Is this just where he is?
Yeah, different drivers peak at different times and peak at different levels. So I can understand why you're possibly questioning that. I think coming into a team like WSR can be quite daunting, and we've always got to remember that this has been his first season with such a big team, and he's always been a team leader before that. That bit
I accept. Yeah.
I do wonder if Turkington's not coming back next season, whether he will be forced to be pushed into that role of team leader, or whether they will have Jake on the main team, as it were. But if he gets given a bit more responsibility, then I think he'll wind in his driving a little bit more. It'll become more consistent, more calculated, like we've seen from Turkington. But it's certainly been a tricky season for him.
Yeah, it's just, at the minute, I'm being reminded of people like Tom Chilton and Stephen Jelly that
never quite got there.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Never quite got there.
Yeah,
I think Chilton's best Tilted Championship came in 2017.
The shredded wheat Ford Focus.
Yeah, out of absolutely nowhere, you know. And I think that when Tom burst onto the scene in that Lego Star Wars Honda Civic, we thought we were looking at a future champion.
Yep.
And actually, his race winnings aren't that impressive, really.
No.
And I feel the same with Morgan. Sorry. Anyway, next up on the list is my
biggest disappointment of the season.
Yeah, D for Dark Horse, D for disappointing, D for the worst prediction made at the start of the season. Is Rory Butcher. Yeah, didn't work out for Rory this year, did it?
Dire.
Good,
absolutely dire.
Yeah, it didn't work out, did it, at all? Really bad.
He's taken one race win this season, and he lucked into that with Lloyd's accident or incident, failure at Donington. Apart from that,
starts with D as well.
It does, and that. Apart from that, he's looked fairly average and ordinary, especially compared to Collard.
In a car that we know is quick, because at the end of the 2022 season, that car had really turned a corner, if you're pardon the pun, and we thought, hang on, they're going to put their own engine in this in 23, keep the team together.
Yep.
They could be a real. And actually, you half agreed with my dark horse suggestion at the start of the year.
The thing is, when
it was it came from a place of logic.
When Butcher won that independence title in the FK2 Honda, he was quick. He was really quick, and he was on title-winning pace of the main championship.
At the halfway stage, he led the championship.
And I was like, oh, we've got a bloody good driver here.
Yeah.
It seems to have either flattened off the development curve, or it might be a combination of all things of the car not quite being right this season. They've had reliability issues.
Yeah.
They've been caught up in accidents as well.
I just think it's a bad season. You write it off and you go again next year. Everyone has a bad season, and with Butcher, I think he's got enough credit in the bank.
Yeah.
I do think he'll be back next season. I do think he'll be at Speedworks next season. I don't see, although he doesn't stay anywhere for long, so I'm surprised if he moves on, because he doesn't. He's been around the houses in his relatively short touring car career. Don't forget, of course, he was at Motorbase in the red Ford, rather, not too long ago. With
WSR candidate?
Nah.
No?
Nah.
Okay.
Nah. No. Why would you? Why would you? Who'd you replace?
Well, if Turkington goes...
Nah.
Okay, fair enough.
No, I don't think so. I think Butcher's happy enough there, and put it as a bad season. I've got a feeling there might be stuff away from the track that might have been a problem as well this year, maybe.
Possibly.
I don't know, psychoanalyse his interview after Donington Park win, but I think he's had a tough year, and I think come back next year and start again.
Going on to a possible WSR candidate then, Rob Collard, Ricky Collard.
Well, Rob might come back. You never know.
His teammate has outperformed the rest of them in the team. Certainly
exceeded expectations.
Very much exceeded expectations, considering at this point last year he was looking to chuck it all in and going to move to Australia, and that's it, I'm done with racing kind of thing. He got convinced to come back, and I think he'll be very glad that happened.
Yeah.
Because he's had some really good performances throughout the season. He's been far more consistent than Butcher has.
Should have had a win.
Should have had a win, yeah.
And the more I look at the Jake Hill overtake at the last round of the season, the more angry I get for Chilton. He lost his win for track limits, because it's nonsense, isn't it? It is nonsense.
Yeah.
But I'm not going to go over track limits again. Do them at all corners, or don't do them at all. That's
I think Collard will be back next season.
Yeah, I agree.
Whether he's at Toyota, I'm not so sure.
Yeah, so there's a possibility for WSR, because he has raced there before.
Yep.
His dad has raced there as well, Rob, so there is a link into WSR. I don't really see, this is going to sound harsh, I don't really see him going to WSR unless they find themselves in a pinch and need a driver quickly, almost as an emergency. They can, I don't think he's top of the list.
Okay.
That's what I'm trying to say. But if it gets this sort of, the deadline and they've got a space to fill, then I think Ricky is the one they'll go for. But
I think he's the most likely of the drivers to go there, in my opinion.
Wow. Okay.
Whether it's to replace Turkington or Jelly, or a combination sort of thing. So
I've got a different driver, that might be my heart, but we'll my head, but we'll get to that later.
But yeah, he's done brilliantly this season.
Yeah, compared to teammate George Gamble, who really has struggled this year. Okay, his first time in a front-wheel drive car, that is a little bit of mitigation. New team, and only his second year in the sport, but my lord, he looked really quite good at Cargots. Took a win.
Yep. Up at Knockhill.
Yeah, and took a podium on his opening weekend at Donington Park, and looked really good. and this season has looked really bad.
Yeah.
Obviously, people remember him fondly for the, or most recently for the destroying of Jade Edwards. Jade Edwards.
Incident.
Yes, the incident with Jade Edwards and ruining her chance of taking points this year. Yeah, it's not been good for George. I don't think he's back next year. I think it's I know what you're going to say, that he brings a lot of sponsorship, but there's lots of drivers that could bring sponsorship. Andy Neate could bring sponsorship. Doesn't guarantee you a place on the grid, does it?
So, no.
I think that Speedworks, they're backed by Toyota. They're a manufacturer. Toyota are taking racing very seriously at the minute in all the other disciplines. There's rumours they're looking to get into F1 as well. They are going to want to have cars that compete, and they're going to want to have drivers that compete. And I don't think, because they're manufacturer backed, his budget will feature that much into it. To be honest with you, I think that they will want a team that competes and wins races.
Doesn't necessarily cut the mustard.
Exactly.
If he is back next year, I don't think it will be at Toyota. But the amount of sponsorship that he brings with him, Team Hard would be kind of silly to turn that sort of sponsorship and publicity down.
See, I see him at PMR if he's anywhere.
Okay.
Because I think
they love a sponsor, don't they?
Well, and I think they'll lose one of Doble or Watson.
Okay.
Honestly speaking.
Well, let's get on to One Motorsport.
Yep.
Josh Cook. A fairly Josh Cook season.
He won the Independence.
Just missing out on that race win that he would have so much liked at Thruxton.
Would he though? Would he? Because everybody wins a race, he's
That's true.
particularly happy about it. But yeah.
A B for him overall this season. Looking at how the season started to how the season finished, there's a vast difference in circumstances and in results, and he certainly picked up throughout the season and kind of finished where you would expect him to finish.
Yeah, he won the Independence, albeit in my view a little bit by default, because Aaron Taylor-Smith had a good season but a slow start to the season, and Bobby Thompson had to quit halfway through. I think if Bobby had stayed, Josh would have won it still just, but I think it would have been
closer.
A good battle. The car's not got pace. Cook's done what he can with it. I think he's driven probably above his capabilities and done what you expect Josh Cook to do.
As a team, we were expecting a lot more, obviously taking on the Dynamics cars from last year, having the Neil Brown engines as well. I thought it was going to be a little bit better, and I think as a team they'll be disappointed.
Is he back before you move on?
Yes. Yeah. Cook's almost a mainstay at the moment.
Yeah.
I think he would be a good option for most teams if he does want to move.
Well, I think that he's more likely or more high on the list that someone like WSR and Collard is.
Oh, really? Okay.
Why do you not want Cook? Why would you not want him?
He's a bit grumpy.
Yeah, but have you seen Jake when he's in a monk?
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
Know, they're all a bit grumpy. They're not, they're
I
not winning. I know you're saying the Cook wins and still was grumpy. I know what you're saying, but if you want pedigree, and actually, we just spoke about Speedworks. I can see that happening.
Oh no, you always discount this idea of mine of him going to accelerate with Tingram.
I don't see it happening, but Speedworks makes a lot of sense. Manufacturer backed, proper racing team with that pedigree.
Depending what happens to this team in the off season, whether they stay in the same format, if they have the same sponsorship, depends probably on the other drivers that are there as well. He could well just be here, be team leader still, and continue that Honda charge.
Yeah, but there'll become a point where he gets fed up of the car and not being competitive. Anyway, for health and safety reasons, I'm doing the next one because you will probably combust if you have to talk about Aidan Moffat for any given period of time, given your strange. The risk assessment says I must start, and you can come in afterwards. So it's a C for Moffat overall. A disappointing year for him. In a new car, in a new team, not a team that he's leading. Obviously, he has had that sort of luxury. Similar to Adam Morgan of leading his own team. Even really last year with Sutton, with Sutton at his team, he was still pretty much team leader's main sponsor provider as well.
Yep.
But yeah, new team for him this year. Been a bit difficult. Not gone. It is a new team for him this year. Yes, it is. Yeah.
It's not gone well.
No, it's not gone well. Sam, You have a few moments.
Thank you.
On you go.
I go back to, it might not have been last season, might have even been the season before, where I called him mediocre.
You did.
And you took great issue to that.
I did. I still do. I don't think he's mediocre. I think he's been disappointing. I think there has been a plateau recently.
I think this season has been the definition of mediocre for him. I think he's finished 16th in the championship. He's had some really poor results. He's had a couple of decent ones, I think, at Thruxton, where we expected the car to go well. But apart from that, it's just...
Okay. I don't disagree it's been a disappointing season. I have a few caveats for you.
Go on.
First of all, the car hasn't been that good this year.
No.
And he's not as skilled or experienced as Josh Cook to drive around those issues. Cook is a better driver. I wouldn't deny that on any level, okay? But Cook can get those results because that's what he can do. Second of all, it's his first time in was it Mercedes front wheel drive?
Yeah.
Okay, but he's gone back to front wheel drive. That can take time to adapt to.
Yeah.
He'd only just really mastered rear wheel drive.
That took him a little while.
Yeah, but caveat there, that car was mental. It was a dog, and for some reason Sutton could drive it. No one else could.
Anything.
Yeah, but
Sutton can drive anything.
But that Infiniti only worked really in Sutton's hands and occasionally in Moffat's. But it was a weird car. Same as the Subaru. Sutton can rock up in a hearse probably and still take a few race wins. So yeah,
that I would pay to see.
So yeah, I don't disagree. It's been a disappointing season, but I think there are caveats. I think the car hasn't been great. I think that there has been some learning for him to have to do in that, and yeah, he's still very young. He's still very young.
Yeah, but he's been here a long time. I know he's young, but he has been here a long time. And
I don't think
the same with your issue with Morgan. I think I would have expected him to be further on in his career.
I don't disagree with that.
And I don't think his peak is as high as Morgan's. It's nowhere near as high as Ingram's.
I was about to say that. I certainly don't think I've ever put Moffat in the I believe him to be a future champion category like I have with Morgan.
Yeah.
But look, without trying to make myself sound like I'm agreeing with your mediocre stuff, Moffat is a very solid middle to upper driver in terms of the way he finishes in races, but he's not in the elite tier.
Okay. Back next season?
Yeah, I mean, he brings all the sponsorship in the world. Yeah. Probably here, I don't know. Well, I don't know.
Licenses at the start of last season confused a lot of things.
Yeah, I agree with you on that.
So he could well be a team hard driver next season under his own title, sort of thing.
He might go back to being a privateer because maybe Laser Tools decide that they are going to continue racing after all. Oh, hang on, they did.
Oh dear. Moving on to Jade then. A C for her this season. The unluckiest driver on the grid, I think.
Yeah.
The amount of incidents that she got caught up in that was certainly not her fault. The amount of mechanical issues that she had, especially in the Cooper at the start of the season, in the one that was supposedly had the bent chassis and was the last to have any new parts put on it and stuff like that.
You can basically write off the first half of the season for Jade. She was there in name, and that was basically it. The car was,
However, her performances certainly improved when she got back to the Honda and back to One Motorsport, formerly BTC Racing, and she looked a lot more comfortable, and the consistency started to come until Gamble decided that she didn't need points this season.
Yeah, and look, Edwards without a doubt has to work harder than any driver on the grid to get sponsorship. She's under the spotlight more than any driver under the grid, being the only female on the grid, and that's unfair. Unfortunately, it's just the way the system is. It doesn't make it right, but that's just the way it is. So she's under that extra pressure, extra spotlight, and has to work extra hard to get on the grid each year. I sincerely hope she is back next year. I've got a feeling she won't be, but I don't think it's based on talent. I think that's purely based on budget.
Yeah. I would love to see her back as well. I think she's really good for the sport. A C this season could have been a lot more if she'd got just those extra few places in some of the races and got decent points. But you can't really give her too much more than that.
I don't rule out an accelerate move if they go to 6 cars. If they go to 6 cars, I don't rule that out.
No, I think
because they could potentially put together a girl team.
It would be a really good promotional aspect of there if they did do that, 2 cars separate
and did Walmsley and Edwards together. That'd be really cool.
Yeah, it would. Moving on then to the Team Hard merry-go-round.
Yes, play the carousel music in the background. I can't think what it is off the top of my head, but Let's start with come in number whatever you were. It's your time. Yeah. Start off with De Lion. It is my turn, isn't it?
Yes.
It is. Yes. Start off with De Lion. Came in as the scholarship winner. This boy is fast. He really is quick. Has scored points in his few races, which I think is pretty impressive, to be fair to him. A really nice guy off the track. Understands the game already. Really polite. Really nice around the fans in the pit lane. A very nice young man. It's a C for him overall. What else could really great? He gets parachuted into that seat halfway through the season. Does a pretty good job in the circumstances. Shows his inexperience other times, as you'd expect. But yeah, above all else, this boy's quick, and I expect to see him in motorsport. Albeit, I don't think we'll see him next year. I think he will go to a quote junior category and hone his skills in his trade.
Yeah, completely agree with you on that one. And he could have come into the series and just really struggled. But he found his feet quickly, and to me that's a sign of a good, quick, competitive driver.
Agreed.
Dan Lloyd, one of his many teammates this season, takes home a C this year.
And one of only two to stay the course.
Yes, I know. And in what was a promising start to the season alongside Bobby, both of the drivers were looking to score points quite consistently and sometimes inside the top 10. It was always going to be a difficult season for Dan. Having reduced budget this year meant that he had to drop down to Team Hard because of that big smash that he had in his Hyundai at Alton Park.
Don't ask a question while I'm drinking, because it's very difficult to answer.
And I think he's done kind of what was expected of him this season. He scored points. I know you're not as keen, are you?
You have a bit of a love end of Lloyd, which is cool. It's no problem. We all have our favourite drivers. I've got no problem with him. I think he works incredibly hard. His YouTube channel is very interesting, and I don't begrudge him anything whatsoever. I just personally, I have him as a midfield driver. Realistically, what is he going to achieve at Hard? Yeah, I get that. Though he didn't really push Cook in the Independence driver.
No, I don't think he was ever going.
Well,
to.
Bobby was until he. Bobby was in the same car, and that's my point.
We know that Bobby is quick and doesn't deserve to be at Team Hard. He deserves to be far higher up the grid.
Are you saying Lloyd doesn't then? You basically just trapped yourself in your own argument.
No, I think Lloyd is a good driver, but
I think he's a good driver, but I'm disappointed in his showing in the Independent Trophy. I don't think he pushed Cook particularly hard in that.
Seeing him against Bobby this season shows the difference in quality between the two drivers.
Yeah, okay, that's fair. I wish no ill. I've got no problem whatsoever. He's a good, very competent driver. I just, similar to what I said about Moffat, I just don't think he's in the elite tier.
Will he be back?
No, sadly, but no budget.
I think he will be, but unfortunately, I think it will be with Team Hard because that's probably the only place he can be.
The problem with that is that we understand that licenses are going to be shrunk to a smaller grid, and we understand that Hard probably won't have 6 cars. So
I think they'd be silly not to take on someone of his experience.
Yes, I agree, but there will be cheaper options.
Yeah, quite possibly. This isn't a cheaper option.
No, and this is the driver that, in my heart, WSR should be all over. To be honest with you, every top team should be all over Bobby Thompson because I cannot overstate, in my opinion, how good a driver he is. And actually, we're not going to be able to put that to the test until he gets a chance at a top team. Maybe he's not as good as we think he is. But at the minute, he's driving well above what that car is capable of.
Is he going to be like when Perez went to McLaren and flopped, and then he's been to Red Bull and he's kind of flopped?
We won't know until he gets the chance, will we? We won't know until he gets the chance. We won't.
It is a slight worry that could be the case. However, his performances in the Cupra, his performances in the Audi S3 have been over and above what we would expect the car to do.
Yeah.
And the final round of the season at Brands really showed that.
Yeah, I mean, he took a podium outright, no reverse grid in that car. He would have had 3 top 6, possibly top 5 finishes that weekend had it not been for the famed hard reliability problems.
Yep.
This lad is quick. He came back to Silverstone after a couple of weeks not being able to race. It'd be very easy for your head to be all over the place. Not in his car, in the other car as well, in Nick's car, and was the fastest hard car in qualifying and probably the fastest hard car all weekend. This boy's got pedigree, this boy's got speed, and this boy needs to be at a top team. Will he be back next year? Similar with Lloyd, my problem is possibly not because of money. I think that's horrific because both should be on the grid.
Yeah.
If he is back, my head says he probably is at Hard, as my head drops saying it. But my heart wants him to be. And we've been a bit down on Hard, but the thing is that Hard run their motorsport in their own way, and it's commendable in its own ways. But it also means that you're unlikely to be able to compete at the top end of the grid on a regular basis.
Yep. And
Bobby needs to be in a BMW, a Napa Ford, something like that.
Would it be a big enough upgrade for him to possibly partner Cook, say, in the Honda?
Yeah, 100% it would be. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah,
Okay.
absolutely. And that could happen. Happen.
I think he will be back. I think it'd be silly if a team doesn't take some sort of chance and put their backing into him, considering the step up in performances that he's had this year. Yes, he's had some fleeting good weekends along the last couple of seasons, but this year he has really shown why he deserves an opportunity, really.
Yeah, the next driver for me is what Team Hard's all about. I know it seems you're starting off, but we've bashed Hard a little bit, but this is where they do get things right.
Yeah.
We're of course talking about.
There's a racer in there. Your favourite driver on the grid? Second favourite driver on the grid.
No, I think. Well, I'll start on Dexter. You've loaded up for me. I think what you've got in Dexter is a very exciting young talent who has come into Hard, kept his head, been there a full season, and done pretty well. Scored points along the way. Come second in the Jack Sears Trophy. Finished consistently in a team where reliability is a problem. And I think that he overtakes very well. Yes, there's still some inexperience. I'm not suggesting he doesn't get caught up and he doesn't create problems at times, but it'd be very easy at young age to lose your head in these circumstances, and he doesn't. He seems very down to earth. He seems very focused at his craft, and he does seem, as I keep saying, to be a good racer. He seems to have a racer's brain.
Yeah, and it was shown in the Jack Sears finishing joint runner-up in the series. He takes a B this season because he has been that good, and if it weren't for sort of like the speed that Andrew Watson had in the wet weather events that we've had this year, then he would have been right up there pushing Watson all the way for that Jack Sears title, I think. Will he be back next year? I think so. He has to be. The fact that he's completed a whole season this year on a Team Hard budget, I do think it's probably Team Hard that he's going to be back at.
I don't think that's a bad thing at this stage of his development.
And if he can be, dare I say it, more charismatic, more putting himself out there, then he might get that reward of having bigger sponsors come in and then being able to go, right, I've got a bigger budget, I can now look at some different teams.
That all comes in time. It's only his second season in the touring cars. It all comes in time. But I think, we've been a bit down on Hard. This is where they say they do get it right. He would do well to save another season, I think.
Yeah.
Oh dear.
Yeah, where Hard might not quite get it right.
Well, to be fair to them, they didn't have him at the start of the season. They brought him in halfway through to replace Michael Crease. It's a D.
It is.
It's a disappointment.
Yep.
Let's get the good stuff out the way. I think he's a cracking lad. The fans love him. He's really good with the fans.
He is.
I think he's a real top bloke. I don't rate him as a race driver though.
He's certainly struggled more than he has done in previous seasons. I don't know whether that's because it's coming in midway through a season or whether it's just because it's with that car. But his performances in the Cupra this season have been really underwhelming and lacklustre, which is why he gets a D.
But it's a continuation though, isn't it? Because I thought he was quite underwhelming and lacklustre at PMR. He was outshone by Ash Hand, rookie in the series. I think he was quite underwhelming and lacklustre at Hard the first time round, albeit I understand they were driving those cinder blocks that had the Volkswagen badge on them, but I don't think he was particularly exciting there either. I'm yet to be convinced by him. Obviously, the Porsches didn't work out for various reasons, the GTs didn't work out for various reasons, but that is becoming a little bit of a reputation now, isn't it? Whether rightly or wrongly, but it is becoming a little bit of a reputation.
Is he back next year?
No, I don't see where. I don't see where.
I don't think he is either. Although he does bring plenty of sponsors with him.
Everyone does.
I don't think he's quite had a good enough season
I don't know
to be warranting a drive.
Yeah, unless Hard of 6 cars again, I don't see where.
Yeah.
Because actually, think about it, he also had a season at BTC when he was underwhelming.
Yeah.
So I forgot about that season. See, I'd forgotten about that season. So that's the point. I'm just not. I think he's a real nice chap. I've got nothing against him personally. I think he's a real, top bloke. But I'm yet to be convinced as a racer.
Moving on to the surprise outfit of the season then.
Yes, is the oven finished for the pie?
PMR.
Yes.
And two rookies that we'll get onto first of all that have been near enough outstanding. There have been some lows. The season started off quite slowly, but they certainly built up throughout the year.
No, didn't. Watson was really good at Donington.
As a team,
Oh,
I'm on
okay.
about.
Okay.
Calm
I
down,
was going to say,
calm
you're talking rubbish.
down. But they certainly picked up their pace throughout the rest of the season, and points finishing races became more consistent through all three of them.
Yeah, and Doble first up is a person I'm eating a lot of words over.
Yeah.
I'll be honest with you, when he came to the series, I had no idea who he was. I looked at his resume and thought, this is a clubman racer who's having a nice day out in touring cars, basically.
Giving it a go for a season.
And boy, was I wrong.
Yeah.
He's a bloody good driver, bloody good racer, and has been, as you said, been a real surprise of the season. Pushed his teammate all the way in the Jack Sears. Jelly didn't help his cause particularly. At Brands, I think Watson would have probably just edged it overall, but hell of an effort by Doble. The only man to break Nappa's pole dominance, which was not on my bingo card in any way, shape or form.
No,
but
it wasn't.
Fair play to him. It's been a really good year for Doble. It's a B. I think he is back next year.
Yep.
I think he's back at PMR.
Yep.
I think they could do worse than keeping him.
Yeah, I completely agree with you once again. That makes a change.
One more, I get the match ball.
On to his teammate then, Watson, the Jack Sears champion,
Yes.
and a worthy champion at that.
Yes.
His performances in the wet weather this season have been outstanding, being able to battle with the top drivers on the grid in a car which we thought was past it.
I'm still convinced of these.
Many seasons ago. But yeah, he's been outstanding and gets an A. He couldn't have hoped for a better season, I don't think.
No, took a podium as well. Two, I think, from memory.
Yeah.
Took a couple of independence wins along the way. Just really good. A really good season of silverware for him. So yeah, good year for Andrew Watson. I think he is back next year.
Yeah.
I think he probably is at PMR, although I think he will be on other people's database. There is lots of rumours on the rumour mill about WSR. I'm not convinced that works with their model, but we shall see. But again, he could do worse than staying at PMR for another year to really cement himself in the sport.
Yeah, I think he'll be back. It wouldn't surprise me if he gets snapped up by a bigger team because of the success that he's had. Possibly somewhere like Toyota might be an option if they're looking to move Gamble on. I think he would be a good third driver for them. But I think PMR really need to try and nail him down to a contract for next season because they'd be silly not to, really.
Yeah, the only sort of fly in the ointment of that is that Ash Hand allegedly has a comeback clause for this year, doesn't he?
Yeah, but so did Jack Constable in that
yes.
season after COVID. So
God, your memory's good. Yes, Jack.
Yeah.
Yes. And then finally on the list for the regular drivers of the year, it's Aaron Taylor-Smith. He gets a B for the season. Started slowly, but really built into the second half of the season. On the podium, collecting lots of silverware along the way in the second half of the season. Still involved in a little scrape here and there, but that's the Aaron Taylor way. But it's been a good year for him.
I always forget that he's one of the more experienced drivers on the grid, and he's taken several wins in his career. But he's done really well. He's already got a contract for next year, so no need to question where he might be.
The only thing I would question is is this the year that they change the car?
We will still be saying this in 2030.
Well, no, I think they will, and I'll give you the reason why I think they will.
Here we go.
Because I do think that the licences will be reduced. I do think that Hard won't be allowed 6, or won't be able to find a way to get 6, and therefore I think they'll want to sell some Cupras. And I think that if they can sell some Cupras, PMR, who have had Cupras in the past in TCR, might go, this is a good chance.
We know how to deal with those.
This is a good chance to upgrade the car.
Yeah. But it has outperformed the Cupra this season. It's like,
it has.
Do you stick with what you know, or do you move on to something new?
Oh, I've forgotten about
we will see.
Sorry. Boutel did complete the season.
Most people...
He's out of order.
Yeah, he is, because he didn't do the final race.
Oh, he didn't, did he? That's why. Yes.
Most people forgot that Boutel was here this season. It has been dire for him as well.
Although he has just had a kid, so they're off track stuff.
Yeah.
But equally, I've been disappointed with Boutel's growth in the sport. This has been, in my opinion, his worst season so far. And
it's really flat and towards the back, and
pace.
Yeah, so far off.
Yeah. It's a D. I don't think he's back.
No, nor do I.
So we can move on.
Yeah. On to then Nick Hamilton. Had his best result of his touring car career at the opening round last year.
In front of his
this
brother.
year even.
In front of Lewis.
Yeah, he's come so far in the sport.
Oh yeah, massively.
And it was so strange and almost disappointing midway through the season when he just wasn't there.
We still don't know what happened. Still nothing about it. Hard, still pretending it's not happening by the sound of it.
So whether he's back next season, I think remains to be seen. The fact that nothing was said from Team Hard or him on the whole debacle midway through the season may put it at risk as to whether he can get a drive for next year.
Or maybe doesn't. Maybe it shows it.
Well,
who knows?
It may just be budget issues.
Yeah, possibly. Again, another really hard-working driver in the same category as Edwards. The spotlight is under him. Because of the son of Lewis. God, I'm tired. The brother of Lewis. Before the internet barries, no, Lewis does not fund his drive. He's never paid a penny towards Nick's stuff. Nick gets all the sponsorship himself. Yes, I don't deny having the Hamilton name probably helps open a few doors, but there's lots of drivers on the grid who have got parents or people in high places that help open doors. It's how life works. In any industry, it's how life works. Pipe down, put the keyboard to one side and go and stand outside.
Everything you've got to your advantage. And coming into a sport like this and the competitive nature of the sport, for him to be able to compete with the disabilities that he has is fantastic.
Agreed.
And I think he's a great ambassador for the sport and for his disability in total, really. I hope he's back next season.
Yeah, I don't think he is, but again, I think that's going to be budgetary rather than anything else. And because, as I keep saying, on a condensed grid, I just think he's unfortunately the sort of driver that would miss out.
Yeah, unfortunately. And then comes Powell.
Yeah, so Powell is the last driver who completed half the season. You've left out half. He did one race. Calm down. Go back and listen to the Knock Hill review. That's yeah. Go back and listen to the driver grades for those particular races, and those would be the grades they would have got at the end of the year.
Yep.
Calm down. Everything's going to be okay.
Powell's exit from the sport midway through the season was shrouded in controversy.
I was going to say for legal reasons.
I wasn't going to say anything too stressful for you, but there are many things that went on behind the scenes that got him wiped from the sport quite quickly.
As the BTCP pseudo lawyer, I just want to say, please watch your words carefully. Yeah, there's lots to come out on that. I actually think he was improving, and I think he'd have had a better second half of the season. I actually think he was getting better as the season was going on. We've got to give him the grade we gave him at the halfway stage, which was a D. I do think it would have been, would have elevated throughout the second half of the season. I think he was going in the right direction, but then it all happened, and one were no longer one.
No.
They were no longer, as in one happy family, they were no longer,
But,
we will never probably find out the truth to that, or 30 years down the line.
When a book comes out,
But we'll be back next year. No, is the, well, I say that. He has been hard before, but...
He'll be racing in another series, whether that be GTs or Classics or... Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So
Did he do them on?
He's done some sort of endurance racing.
So, he'll be back. He'll be on a racing calendar somewhere near you, but probably not in the touring car paddock.
Please do let us know if you think we've got any of these grades terribly wrong.
Oh, we've definitely done so. but rather than dislike the video, just tell us. Don't, because it messes up the algorithm. Don't put you don't like it. Just say why you think that we've been harsh or wrong or something. Yeah, don't ruin the algorithms, man.
Yeah, we love to hear your thoughts, and the more comments, the better, because they help boost it all, really. If you haven't already, please do subscribe and get the bell on YouTube, because you'll get a notification every time we release a video when we finally get to recording it. It all goes through smoothly.
Yes.
But we'll be back with news snippets throughout the off season and any
and awards nights coming up.
Yes. Yeah, I need to get the suit sorted.
Yeah, I haven't brought the trophies because in the previous two I've shown off the trophies and I can't show them off now, which is really disappointing.
No, but it builds the anticipation.
It does, yeah. Looking forward to that. There will be. We should probably also organise.
Yes.
Getting the categories up so fans can.
Yeah, there'll be bits and pieces for fans to vote on. I think there are 4 fan votes that will help along the way of 12, 15 awards that we'll be giving out.
Yeah.
So please do keep your eye on social media for those. We'd love to have your interaction with that.
And as part of that evening, I'm just spying the silver briefcase over there, which has the envelopes in.
Not in there. They're down in there.
Oh, I thought you put them in that seal.
No.
Okay, well, okay. I'm spying a briefcase which doesn't have envelopes in, but as part of that evening, we will be opening our envelopes that we sealed at the start of the season to see how well we got on with that. I'm looking forward to that. There's a trophy on the line for that.
Yeah. What happened? There is a possibility that we could share that trophy, isn't there?
There is a possibility we can share the trophy.
Okay.
Yeah.
We'll see how that all goes, but please do join us when we will be back next time.
Bye for now.